Hello everyone. I am Dr. Savan Giridhar Dharmapuriwar, Associate Professor, Vidyasagar Kala Mahavidyalay, Khairi, Vijayawada, Ramtek. Today, we are going to learn a famous play written by William Shakespeare, Merchant of Venice. Merchant of Venice is a comedy written by William Shakespeare. Though originally this play is written as a comedy by William Shakespeare, but the play goes in the fashion of tragicomedy in which we find many tragic and comic elements are mingled together harmoniously by William Shakespeare. So we will start with the play. But before we move on to the play, we shall discuss a little about the famous writer William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare is a dramatist of repute. He is a poet, actor, and a dramatist. He is regarded as the greatest writer in English language. He was born in the year 1564 and died in the year 1616. He was born in Stratford upon Avon, a place situated in England. His writing career goes from 1590 to 1612. It means he was writing for more than 22 years for English theatre and stage. In all, he has written 37 plays. And those 37 plays can be further divided under various subcategories. We can divide them as Shakespearean tragedy, Shakespearean comedy, Shakespearean tragicomedies, the English historical plays of William Shakespeare, and the Roman plays written by William Shakespeare. Besides writing dramas, he has also wrote some poems. He wrote two long narrative poems, Rape of Lucrece and Venus and Adonis. He also has written 154 sonnets, and he is regarded as the greatest writer in the world. He has created immortal dramas and his fame is everlasting. Now, we will begin with the drama. But before that, we shall discuss which are the various dramatis personae, which are the various characters that appear in the drama. The first and foremost character of the drama is Antonio. As the title suggests, Merchant of Venice. Antonio is the Merchant of Venice in this play. Second important character, or rather I can say that the central character of drama is Portia. As we all know, in the tragedies of William Shakespeare, the male character are of much importance, but in the comedies of William Shakespeare, the female characters are much important than the male one, and the drama revolves around those female characters. So in this drama, the central character is Portia. Portia is very beautiful, very gorgeous. She is a rich heiress, and she has inherited a what we can say large amount of property from her dead father. But problem is that no doubt she is very beautiful, very attractive, very rich, and many men wanted to get married with her. But at the same time, problem is that Portia is unable to get married according to her will because her father has arranged what we can say some caskets into her house, and the person who will choose the right casket, that man will be able to get married with Portia. So that's why her sorrow is that though she is beautiful, young, rich, but she is not permitted to get married according to her will. Then third important character is Bassanio. Bassanio is a rich man. He is friend of Antonio, but though he is a rich man, but because of his extravagant habits, what he has done, he has lost all his money. He has what we can say become a bankrupt. He has lost his fortunes and property, and he is in debts now. And he is good friend of Antonio, and whenever he is in need of money, he comes to Antonio, and Antonio gives him money as much as he wants. At the same time, he is also suitor and Portia. He is the man who wants to try his luck in the lottery of casket. He is the man who is in love with Portia, and he wanted to get married with Portia. Another important character is Shylock. Shylock is a rich Jew merchant who is living in the Christian country, who is living in the Venice. And in Venice, he's what we can say, doing his business. He's giving money to the people on loan. He is taking higher interest. He's a greedy kind of fellow. Then Gratiano is there. Gratiano is a common friend of Antonio and Bassanio. He always remain in the company of Bassanio. Then second female character in the play is Nerissa. Nerissa is maid servant of Portia. But more than maid servant, she's good friend of Portia, and she always remain in the company of Portia. Third female character in the drama is Jessica. Jessica is daughter of Shylock, and she is in love with a man. She is Jew by birth, but she is in love with a Christian man, and his name is Lorenzo. Lorenzo is lover of Jessica. Then Antonio, Portia, Bassanio, Shylock, Graciano, Nerissa, Jessica, and Lorenzo. These are quite important characters in the drama who appear in the drama very often and then. But there are some characters who are minor, but they are also of quite importance. Duke of Venice is there. He is the administrator of state of Venice. He is the chief person of state of Venice. Then Prince of Aragon and Prince of Morocco are there. These are the two prominent names which comes to Belmont as a suitor of Portia. They try their luck in the lottery of caskets. Besides these two people, many other princes are there, many other young men are there who have come to Belmont and they wanted to get married with Portia, but after taking oaths, the people have gone away. Okay, so Prince of Aragon is there, Prince of Morocco is there. Then another important character is Tubal. Tubal is a Jew friend of Shylock, and this is the man who has been given responsibility by Shylock when his daughter elopes with a Christian man, Lorenzo. And Shylock asked him that, please go after my daughter and try to find her, try to search her, bring her back. She has not only what we can say eloped from my house, she has not only eloped with a Christian, but she has also robbed me with my money and all the ornaments which I have been contained in my house. Then another two important characters in the play are Lancelot Gobbo and Old Gobbo. Lancelot Gobbo is a Shakespearean fool. He works as a servant in the house of Shylock, but after some time, he is what we can say not ready to work with Shylock, and he wants to join the services of Bassanio, because in the house of Shylock, he is not getting proper salary, he is not getting proper food to eat, and that's why he wants to leave the service of Shylock and he wants to join the services of Bassanio. And Old Gobbo is blind father of Lancelot Gobbo, and these two characters together creates lot of fun, lot of laughter in the play because of their activities. Then next character is Leonardo. Leonardo is servant to Bassanio. He, what we can say, works for Bassanio and works very honestly for him. Then Stefano and Balthazar are there. These are servants to Portia. Then Salanio, Salario, Salarino. These three people are common friends of Bassanio and Antonio. I can add one more name: Salanio, Salario, Salarino, and Graciano are friends to Bassanio and Antonio. Besides these characters who appear in the drama, there are many other characters which have very small roles, which have what we can say one or two entries, and those characters are officers of the court, servants, attendants. One other name that we hear in the fourth act during the trial scene is Dr. Bellario. He's doctor of law and who is living at the place Padua. So this is all about the important characters that will appear in the flow of the drama, and that we will what we can say here during the course of drama. Now we shall begin the play, but before that we must discuss which are the various themes, which is the central theme, which are the various sub themes in the drama. So when we think about the central theme of the play, Merchant of Venice, the central theme of the play is love leading to marriage. As usual in the comedies of William Shakespeare, we find that the central theme is love, and that love is leading to the marriage. But here also, before that love leads to the marriage, some other themes have been mingled by the dramatist, and sometimes those sub-themes are going parallel with the central theme of the play, and the theme of true friendship is there, friendship between Antonio and Bassanio. Then how Antonio helps his good friend Bassanio and how he endangers his life, that theme is there. Then another theme is signing of the brutal bond between Antonio and Shylock. Because of his friend Bassanio, Antonio borrows money from Shylock. He takes loan from Shylock of 3,000 ducats, and because of that he signs the brutal bond. And according to that bond, Antonio is borrowing 3,000 ducats from Shylock as a loan, and for that he did not have to pay any of the interest. But if Antonio fails to repay the loan amount within the speculated time, in that case Shylock will be entitled to cut 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio. And that was the, what we can say, agreement. That was the term of the bond. Then there is casket story. I have already told you that the heroine of the play, or rather the central character of the play, Portia, who is very beautiful, very charming, very attractive, very young, very rich, but at the same time she is not able to get married according to her will, because caskets have been arranged by her father into her house, and her father thinks that if at all some man comes to my daughter, he wanted to get married with my daughter, he should not come because of her beauty, he should not come because of her richness, but a proper man should come into her life. And that's why he has arranged some caskets into his house, and then the person who will choose the right casket, he will be able to get married with Portia. The casket story, the theme of casket story is there. Then elopement of Jessica. Jessica is a daughter of Shylock. Shylock is a Jew, and Jessica elopes with a Christian man whose name is Lorenzo. And then execution of bond by Shylock, how he wants to, what we can say, use that bond in a practical life, how he, what we can say, goes to the court of Venice, he wants justice for that. And then cleverness of Portia, how Portia acts very cleverly during the trial scene. All those things that, what we can say, takes the drama further, and we will see into the flow of the drama. Now, when we think about the, what we can say, acts in the play, Merchant of Venice is divided in 5 acts. It's a, what we can say, 5-act play, and those acts are further divided into various scenes. Act first is divided in 3 scenes. Second act is divided in 9 scenes. Third act is divided in 5 scenes. Fourth act is divided in 2 scenes, and the fifth act is divided as, what we can say, as only a single scene. Then the places that comes into the drama. The drama happens on only 2 places. It partly happens at Venice. It partly happens at Belmont. So these are the 2 places very often, and then comes in the drama, and all the, what we can say, incidents or events, those are happening into the drama, they're happening partly at Venice and partly at Belmont. So this is all about the introductory part of the drama. Now we will try to learn it, learning the various acts. So in the act first, what happens when the curtain rises for the first act? What we can say, the drama begins at the place of Antonio. We are at Antonio's place, and Antonio is a rich merchant. He is a man who is suffering from a unknown kind of melancholy, and he's always in a, what we can say, sad kind of mood. Then Bassanio, who is his very good friend, and he's a man who was rich once upon a time, but because of his extravagant habits, what happened? He has lost all his fortunes, he has lost all his property, he has lost all his money, and at present he is in debts. But his, what we can say, greatest fortune is that Antonio, a rich merchant of Venice, is his good friend, and whenever he is in need of money, he always come in the company of Antonio. And now also, when the drama begins in the first act, we find that Bassanio has come to the house of Antonio. Bassanio comes and requests Antonio to lend some money. He needed that money to mend his fortune and to pay his debts by marrying a beautiful heiress, Portia. Portia is extremely beautiful, and at the same time, she is a rich heiress living at Belmont. And Bassanio, who is in love with Portia, wanted to get married with her, and after marriage, he can also get right over her property, and with that property and money, he wanted to bend his fortune, he wanted to pay his debts. And because of that, in order to meet Portia, in order to go Belmont, he wanted some money, and that's why he has come to his good friend Antonio and demands some money to Antonio. But Antonio at this time is helpless because he don't have ready money with him, and he says that all his fortunes are at sea, and they have gone for business to the shores of various countries, and until and unless his ships will not come back to the shore of Venice, he will not be able to give any ready cash to Bassanio. But still he says that no problem, I don't have money, but you can go to the creditors who are living in Venice. You can, what we can say, go to them. You can take some loan from them, and you can take that loan. I knew that, or it's rather Bassanio says that no creditor will give loan in my name because of my reputation. But Antonio says that no problem. You just tell them my name and say that Antonio wants to take that loan, and in my name you can borrow that particular money. And then Bassanio says that, okay, I'm in need of 3,000 ducats. I will see some man who can give me some money. I will, we can say, search from some creditor, and I will take that loan in your name. So then in the next part of first act, we see that Portia, who is extremely beautiful girl and rich heiress, but still she's not able to marry according to her will. Her fate depends upon the lottery of the caskets. I have already told you that her father has arranged 3 caskets of gold, silver, and lead into her house, and one of these caskets contain her full-length portrait. The man who will select the correct casket will win her hand for marriage. And if one loses to choose the right casket among the 3, then there was, what we can say, some rules were there. First of all, that man, before he enters into the room of casket, before he, what we can say, starts selecting the right casket, he has to take an oath. And according to that oath, if that man fails to choose the right casket, then what will happen? He will never court a girl in marriage and lead a life of celibacy. Secondly, he will not tell anybody what casket he had chosen. And the third and important thing is that without saying anything, he will at once leave the place. So these were the rules before entering into that room of casket. Many of the people, many of the young men, many of the, what we can say, men from all the corners of the world who have been attracted towards Belmont because of her beauty and richness. But before they could enter the room, they have to take these oaths. And when they hear about those oaths, the people just leave the place without going inside the room of the caskets. Okay. Then next part in the act first is that signing of the bond. I have already told you that Bassanio was in search of the creditor, but when he is not able to get proper one, he goes to Shylock, who is the greatest creditor in living in Venice, and he gives lends money to the people by taking the higher interest, and he reaches to Shylock. When he tells that he wants to take a loan of 3,000 ducats, first of all Shylock says no, but when Bassanio tells that he wants to take that loan in the name of Antonio, Shylock once again says no. But then in his mind he thinks about something, because he has a, what we can say, feeling of enmity for the sake of Antonio. He has feeling of rivalry against Antonio, because he thinks that Antonio, being a Christian, he has, what we can say, tremendous hate for the sake of Antonio in his mind. First reason is that Antonio is Christian, Shylock is a Jew. Second reason is that main business of Shylock is to, what we can say, lend money, give money to the people and take higher interest. But Antonio always gives money without taking interest to the people, or takes very lower interest. And because of that, his business of, what we can say, lending money has been going down. And third reason is that many a times, because of the greedy habits of Shylock, this Antonio has publicly insulted Shylock. And because of that, Shylock has tremendous hatred, tremendous, what we can say, feeling of enmity for the sake of Antonio. And when he thinks that the man, his friend Bassanio, has come to him and he want to borrow some money in the name of Antonio, then he thinks that, okay, I should give him that money. But that feelings have not been shown by Shylock on his face, and says that, okay, if you want money, then I'm ready to give you. And he starts thinking about it. So here at this point, what we can say, with the decision of Shylock to lend money to Bassanio in the name of Antonio becomes final. But before he could, what we can say, give him money, Shylock says that I will not take a single penny as an interest. I will give you 3,000 ducats for the period of 3,000 months, but I want to enter into a bond. I want to sign an agreement with your friend Antonio. And according to that bond, I will give 3,000 ducats to Antonio for the period of 3 months. But if at all Antonio fails to give back that money within the speculated time, in that condition, I will be entitled to cut 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio. when this sort of term has been heard by Bassanio, Bassanio is not ready to, what we can say, borrow money from Shylock. But when this thing has been this thing comes up to Antonio, and when he knew that no other creditor is able to give that much amount of money, he says to, or he advises, or he says to Antonio that, okay, he says to Bassanio that, Bassanio, okay, take money from Shylock, I will sign that particular bond, and I am quite confident that within 3 months, all my ships which have gone for business to the various corners of the world, that will definitely come back to the shore of Venice, and I will once again able to, what we can say, give you money. I mean, once again I will become rich, and I have a lot of money with me, and then I can pay back the money of Shylock. So with this thing, I can say that a brutal bond has been signed between Shylock and Antonio, and Shylock gives 3,000 ducats to Antonio. So with this thing, the first act of the play ends over here, and then we move on to the act number 2. So in the second act, of the play, we once again reach to the Belmont. Belmont is a place at which our heroine Portia is living. And Portia, at Portia's place, we find that the many people from all the corners of the world are coming over there. They wanted to get married with Portia. And there we find the Prince of Morocco and Prince of Aragon have arrived over there. They have come to Belmont in order to win the fair hand of Portia. They are quite confident that they will choose the right casket. Prince of Morocco, when takes all those oaths and enters into the room of the casket, he just goes inside the room. He reads inscription written over the golden casket, the silver casket, and the leaden casket. And after reading all those inscriptions, he just, what we can say, goes near the golden casket. He chooses the golden casket with the inscription written, "Who chooses me shall gain what many men desire." He thinks that I am the prince, I am the king, I am the man who has everything, and I am the one who deserves the fair hand of, what we can say, Portia. And he chooses that one. But when that casket has been opened by Prince of Morocco, he did not get the full-length portrait of Portia. And what he gets what we can say, a skull, a dead skull with a message: all that glitter is not gold. Prince of Aragon is the next one, what we can say, who tries his luck in the lottery of the casket. He enters the room, and when he enters the room, once again he sees all those 3 caskets, and he wanted to get the casket which contains the full-length portrait of Portia, and he wanted to win the fair hand of Portia. And then Prince of Aragon, then he, what we can say, starts thinking over it, and he then chooses a casket which has inscription. He chooses the silver casket which has inscription: "Who chooses me shall have as much as he deserves." And when he opens that particular silver casket, and he thinks that, okay, I deserve the fair hand of, what we can say, of Portia. And when he opens it, what he finds after opening, he finds a portrait of a dull-eyed fool with a message: "Some people become attached to shadows and get only shadowy happiness." And with this thing, both the princes, that Prince of Morocco and Prince of Aragon, having been chosen the wrong caskets, the people have to leave that place at once, and the people just, what we can say, goes away from the from the place of Portia. Next, we find that now we are introduced further in this act with Lancelot Gobbo and his father. These 2 people are, what we can say, the source of laughter, source of fun, source of amusement in the play, and the people creates lots of fun in the play. Lancelot Gobbo, who is working as servant of Shylock, wants to leave the services of Shylock, and he wanted to join the services of Bassanio. Bassanio is also a generous man. When he listens requests from Lancelot Gobbo, and when he thinks that his owner, or rather Shylock, did not have any problem with leaving Lancelot Gobbo's services, then he says that if at all you want to join my services, he just what we can say says that you can join my services. He accepts his request. When Shylock's daughter comes to know about this, the girl becomes very sad, as his company, or Lancelot Gobo's company, was the only source of comfort for her in her father's house, and he also used to act as a messenger in her love affair with the Lorenzo. I have already told you that Jessica, who is daughter of Shylock, and she is in love with Lorenzo, a Christian man, and this Lancelot Gobo, who is a great source of what we can say fun, at the same time he acts as a messenger of the love letters between Jessica and Lorenzo, and she feels very sad, but at the same time she is also happy that she is going to leave the services of her father, and she will get proper treatment, proper wages, proper food to eat when he will be in the services of Bassanio. Now Bassanio has all set to what we can say leave for Belmont. He has what we can say started his travel for Belmont, because he has money now and he wanted to try his luck. He wanted to win fair hand of Portia. So Bassanio has set out for Belmont, and at the same time, news about Jessica's elopement with Lorenzo comes. And you just think, the man who hates Christian people, the man who loves his money, the man who is what we can say greedy kind of person, when he comes to know that his daughter has eloped with Christian man Lorenzo, at the same time he also comes to know that when his daughter eloped from his house, she has robbed him with all his money, all his golden ornaments, all his what we can say possessions. And this what we can say makes Shylock very angry. Not only his daughter has ran away with a Christian, but she has ran away with all his money, robbing him with all his property, and that's why he just becomes mad with the anger. He is not able to understand that what he should do now, means how he could what we can say search for the sake of his daughter. And then in the next part of third act, we find that from the conversation of Salario and Salanio, we have been informed that the ships of Antonio carrying his merchandise has drowned in the seawater. This and further, this news is also confirmed by Shylock's good friend Tubal. Tubal is a person who is Jew by birth. He is good friend of Shylock, and he has been given responsibility by Shylock to search Jessica. So the news of what we can say news regarding Antonio's ships have been drowned in the sea water is confirmed by Tubal. Shylock becomes very happy. But the very next news, or rather I can say that the very next news that was the bad kind of news for the Shylock, is given by Tubal, and he also informs that he could not discover his daughter, and he has heard that she has been spending his money in improper way, in the extravagant way, and that's why Shylock once again becomes very angry that his money has been robbed by his daughter, and he just thinks that if his daughter were dead and lying in the coffin at his feet, and her coffin would be filled with the ducats, with the golden ornaments which has been taken away by her from his house. Then with this anger, he just decides to execute the bond to have his revenge. What we can say, he want to have his revenge, and he thinks that executing the bond, using it in a practical way, taking that bond into the court of Venice, will what we can say satisfy his revenge. Bassanio tries, then Bassanio, the man who has all set out for a Belmont, reaches to the Belmont. He has been welcomed by Portia, and Belmont wants to try his luck in the lottery of the casket. Before he enters to the room of casket, he once again takes those oaths and chooses, and then when he's inside that particular room, Portia, she does not what we can say tell anything about which is the right casket or not, but she in her heart is thinking that this man should choose, make the choice of the right casket. She just plays a beautiful music when this man is inside the room, and she thinks that if at all he will select the right casket, it's good for both of them, and if at all he will fails to do so, he will just leave the place. And then Bassanio enters the room. He tries his luck in the lottery of casket, and when he reads the inscription written on the golden, silver and leaden casket, he just thinks over it, and he chooses the casket of lead with the inscription, "Who chooses me must give and hazard all he has." And then he thinks that, means while choosing this, means when I'm thinking I want to win Portia's fair hand into the marriage, then I must be able to face all the dangers of the life in order to save my wife from any of the condition. And he is not deceived by the outer show of the gold, outer beauty of the gold and silver. He just what we can say make the choice of the leaden casket, which speaks, "Who chooses me must give and hazard all he has," and he chooses the right one, and he is ready to endanger his life for the beautiful Portia. And when he opens that particular casket of lead, he finds a full length beautiful picture of Portia in it. And as usual, he has what we can say that he has chosen the right casket, he has won the lottery of the casket, and at the same time he wins the fair hand of Portia in marriage. And both of them now are extremely happy. At last their dream is fulfilled and they are able to get married with each other. So in the same act, in further development, we find that Salanio comes to Belmont with a letter from Antonio. Bassanio becomes sad after reading the letter. When he, what we can say, goes through the lines of letter, he becomes very sad, and his wife, or newly, what we can say, his wife, Portia, just now, what we can see, has owned the fair hand of Portia. Portia is not able to understand that before sometime this man was very happy, and after reading this letter he has completely become sad. And from that letter, Bassanio comes to know about execution of the bond by Shylock, and Antonio wants to meet him before his death. Then Bassanio informs Portia that his dear friend Antonio is in great trouble only because of him, and Portia suggests that they should marry now. According to the condition, as per the condition, time says that they should, what we suggest that, or time says that they should marry without any delay now, and Bassanio should go to Venice in order to help his friend. He should remain present in the court when that case will appear in the court. And she also asked Bassanio to take her money in order to save the life of his good friend Antonio. Then this Bassanio, Portia, and Gratian, at the same time, when Bassanio and Portia are ready to get married with each other, Gratiano rebels his love for the sake of Nerissa. Nerissa also has some soft feelings about Gratiano. So when Bassanio and Portia gets married with each other, Gratiano and Nerissa also, what we can say, marries each other, and both the brides give their rings to their husbands as the token of their love, and takes promise that under any circumstances they would never part with the rings. Those rings have been gifted by the girls to their husbands, and they also take the promise that means they will never part with the rings. And with this thing, I can say that we move on to the next part of the third act. So we find that Antonio is in prison now, as Shylock has filed a case against him, and he is in prison. That case is going to appear before the court, and until Antonio has been kept in the prison. So after the departure of Bassanio and Gratiano, Portia also decides to leave for Venice. She has a plan in her mind. She sends her servant Balthazar with a letter to her cousin, Dr. Bellario. Dr. Bellario is an eminent justice of Padua, and many a times Duke also takes advice, take counsel from Dr. Bellario. She knows about this, what we can say, case and the expertise of the Dr. Bellario. She explains the facts of Antonio's case through this letter and seeks Dr. Bellario's help and guidance in this matter. And she also demands for some necessary ropes of the lawyer. Okay. Then she asked Lorenzo and Jessica to take care of her house. She did not tell any, what we can say, details to them, but she just requests that they have to take care of her house while she and Nerissa will be praying in nearby convent for the success of their husbands. Means she just tells them that both of them are going to a convent and they are going to pray over there. They will remain there for a couple of days, and after that they will come back. But during that time, they should, means Lorenzo and Jessica should take care of her house and all the things. Having done this, Portia and Nerissa at once starts for Venice without telling anything to anybody. Secretly, they start for Venice to appear in the court of Venice disguised as a doctor of law and his assistants in order to save the life of Antonio. And with this thing, I can say that the fourth act of the play ends over here. So when the fourth act begins, it begins with a famous trial scene of Merchant of Venice. It's an immortal scene in the field of English literature. So In the trial scene, she appears over there. Means before Portia appears over there, we find in that what we can say court of Venice, we find that Antonio is facing the trial. Many eminent people, many what we can say common people from state of Venice have gathered over there out of their curiosity, love and sympathy for Antonio, and they wanted to see that what is going to happen next, means whether Antonio will be saved from the clutches of Shylock. Shylock, who is there with what we can say weighing machine and knife and everything, he's quite confident that he's going to get the justice and he will be able to cut 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio. He's very happy. Shylock demands a pound of flesh from Antonio's body as a justice and the penalty of the bond. Bassanio, who comes over there, he has what we can say brought a lot of money from Portia. Bassanio offers him what we can say the amount. He says that okay, if you are not satisfied with the 3,000 ducats, then he is what we can say going to double that amount. He is going to make thrice that amount. We will what we can say give thrice the money to Shylock, but Shylock refuses to accept, and he says that I want only justice, and my justice will be according to the agreement, according to the terms written into the bond. After some time, that what we can say Duke of Venice also requests Shylock to take back his case, but Shylock is not ready to listen to anyone. And then this man, what we can say Duke of Venice, says that I wanted counsel of a great doctor of law, Dr. Bellario, and he will come to this place at any moment, and after that we will start the proceedings of the court. But in place of Dr. Bellario, there appear Portia dressed as a lawyer. She introduces herself as the assistant of Dr. Bellario and seeks permission to the court and to the Duke to see the proceedings of the case on his behalf. She has been permitted by the Duke, and she gives, before she what we can say starts the proceedings of the court, or before when she what we can say look into the matter of the case, and before she pass any judgment or speak with Antonio and Shylock, she just what we can say speaks to the court, and she gives a fine speech on the quality of mercy and request, means after delivering that speech, that how mercy will be double benefited, how it will shower benefit on Antonio and Shylock, on both the what we can say people. After saying that, after what we can say speaking on the quality of mercy, she requests Shylock to forgive Antonio and take back his case. She says that you should what we can say show some mercy on Antonio. You should leave your bond. You should leave the conditions of your bond. You should what we can say not think about the terms and agreement of the bond, and you should accept what we can say. You should take back your case. But Shylock refuses to do so, and he says that, ma'am, sorry, sir, I have come over here only to take justice, and my justice I knew that I have tremendous belief in the law of Venice, and I knew that this court will make justice for me, and my justice will be according to the terms and conditions which are written in the bond. Okay, so next we can say that Portia, when sees that this man is not ready to take back his case, or he's not ready to what we can say um, think anything about the forgiveness for the sake of Antonio, Portia then asks Shylock to accept thrice the amount offered by Bassanio. Means in place of 3,000 ducats, she says that okay, this man, Antonio's friend, is ready to give you 9,000 ducats. Take those money and just take back your case. But Shylock only demands justice, and as per the agreement of the bond. Portia then pronounced the judgment in favor of Shylock. And when Shylock hears that, he becomes very happy. She allows Shylock to take 1 pound of flesh from the Antonio's body, and she also tells Antonio to unbutton his chest so that Shylock can cut 1 pound of flesh from his body. Shylock is very happy. He's what we can say just start dancing with happiness, and he sharpens his knife, and he what we can say ready to cut 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio. He just sharpens his knife, and when he is about to do so, when he goes near to Antonio, when he is about to cut 1 pound of flesh from the body of Antonio, he has been stopped by Portia, and now Portia plays her master stroke and says, as per the term, Miss Shylock, you have told me that you want justice as per the conditions and terms of the bond. And then she says that as per the terms of the bond, Shylock is entitled to take only a pound of flesh from the body of Antonio, but while doing so, he has no right to shed even a single drop of the blood. He can take only 1 pound of flesh of Antonio, neither an ounce more or less, or shed even a single drop of Antonio's blood. And if he does so, all his wealth will be confiscated by state of Venice. And this was the clear judgment of Portia in the case of lawyer. And when this judgment has been heard by Shylock, Shylock is completely shocked, and he says that no, this is not possible. How it is possible that I will cut a flesh from human body or someone's body, then and blood will not be shed. And he says that no, this is not possible. But Portia says that no, this is, I'm just, what we can say, giving you justice. You told me that, or you demanded the justice as per the terms and conditions of the bond, and according to the conditions and terms of the bond, you are entitled only to take 1 pound of flesh and not to shed a single drop of blood. Then Shylock just says that okay, if this is the case, he says that I want thrice the amount offered by Antonio. But Portia says no to this, as Shylock has already refused to take that money, and as per his wish, justice has been given to him. Portia further informs him that he has been found guilty of having plotted against the life of a citizen of Venice, and as a result of which his life lies at the mercy of the Duke. Now Duke will decide that what is going to happen with you. He will take the decision. No doubt your property is going to be confiscated now, but at the same time you have been found guilty to plot against the life of a citizen of Venice, and because of that your life is at the mercy of the Duke. Now in the next part of the fourth act, we watch that while, what we can say, further telling about her decision, she speaks further that according to the law of Venice, if a foreigner found guilty of having plotted against the life of a citizen of Venice, his property will be confiscated, and half of the property will go to that citizen, and other half will be taken over by the state. So this was her judgment, this was her punishment for the sake of Shylock. The Duke, without, what we can say, showing any mercy for the sake of Shylock, he announces the death sentence for Shylock at once. But Antonio, who is very kind-hearted man, who is a man with golden heart, he just, what we can say, requests the Duke to forgive Shylock. He does not desire it. He also says that he does not desire to have half of his property. He announces that he will give his share to Shylock's daughter Jessica and his son-in-law Lorenzo. So these were the things which were spoken by Antonio. He was really a great man. He forgives Shylock, and he also requests Duke that he should not, what we can say, announce death sentence for the Shylock. Shylock, when he listens that, he has no alternative but to accept this. Thus, the mighty Jew is not only defeated but also robbed of his property, which was the only source of his living in Venice. Bassanio and Gratiano, who are extremely happy that life of Antonio has been saved from the clutches of Shylock, the people are very grateful to the lawyer and his young lawyer and his assistants. They request them to accept something as a gift. First of all, both of them, Miss Portia and Nerissa, in the case of the lawyers and lawyer's assistant, says that no, they don't want any gift from them. That was their duty, and they performed their duty honestly. But after continuous requests from Bassanio and Gratiano, both the ladies just says that if you want to gift us, then give your rings which you are wearing. And first of all, Bassanio says no for that, because this ring has been gifted at the time of marriage by his wife. But then Portia says that every man says tells this kind of reason when he did not want to give anything, and then she just starts leaving that place. But after some time, when Antonio requests Bassanio that just give that ring to that lawyer, and your wife will, what we can say, understand it. She will, what we can say, think that you have done the right thing. So both the ladies, means when Bassanio asks Gratiano to run after the lawyer, give that ring to that young lawyer, and when Gratiano goes over there, he gives that ring to lawyer's assistant. Nerissa also manages to take the ring out of the Gratiano's finger as the gift. So Both the ladies manages to get the rings from their husbands, keeping their disguise intact. Soon after, they people just both of them leave Venice and they go back to Belmont. Okay, so we can say that with this thing, the fourth act of the play ends, and now we move on to the act number 5. In act number 5, we find, but before that act starts, I just want to tell you that some critics think that the fifth act in the play is superfluous. There was not need of this, what we can say, fifth act, but this particular fact is not correct, because I think it is important. The fifth act is important in order to solve the complications of the ring episode. So when we, what we can say, reach in the fifth act, we find that Lorenzo and Jessica, who have been given the responsibility of Portia's house during their absence from the house, they are in the garden of Portia's house and they are indulged in a, what we can say, very intimate love talk. Portia and Nerissa come back to Belmont, and soon after them, Bassanio Graciano also arrives there along with Antonio. Portia pretends that she is, what we can say, she was somewhere in the convent and she was praying for the success of their husband. Portia did not, what we can say, tell about the proceedings, what happened into Venice, and Portia just welcomes all of them. And then when they notice that, when, what we can say, Nerissa notices that Graciano is not wearing the ring which has been gifted at the time of marriage. At the same time, she also tells this thing to Portia, and she asks Portia that just ask Bassanio whether Bassanio is also having that ring or not. And Portia also, what we can say, speaks to Bassanio and says him that, okay, show me the ring which I have gifted you at the time of the marriage. But when these two ladies notice that their husbands are not wearing the ring, they notice the ringless fingers of their husbands, a quarrel starts between them, and these girls, these ladies, say that their husbands must have given that rings to some girls in Venice. And when that quarrel goes on, Antonio just comes in between and he just requests them to stop quarreling, and Antonio informs them that these two guys, means Bassanio and Graciano, have given those rings to the lawyer and his assistants on his request, as the lawyer has saved his life from the clutches of the Shylock. When this thing has been told by Antonio, that has been heard by Portia and Nerissa, and the quarrel has been stopped. But then these girls once again, or the Portia and Nerissa, once again give the ring to their husbands, and once again they take the promise that they should never part with those rings in any circumstances. Okay, then when, what we can say, Bassanio sees the ring which is once again given by Portia, Bassanio at once recognizes that it was the same ring which was given by him to the lawyer. He is quite confused that how this ring has come to Portia, and then he asked that this is the same ring which I have gifted to the lawyer at Venice. And Portia then, without, what we can say, thinking much, she discloses the entire secret. She tells everything, how she appeared in the court of Venice, how she, what we can say, acted there as a lawyer, young lawyer, and how Nerissa was there to assist her as her assistants, and how both of them have saved the life of Antonio from the clutches of Shylock. Nerissa further tells to Lorenzo and Jessica, she gives good news, a happy news to them, and says that Lorenzo and Jessica, they are now the rightful heirs to the property of Shylock. Means everything that has been happened to the court is once again explained by Portia. And then when this has been heard by everyone present over there, everyone is quite surprised and they are extremely happy to know this. And I can say that the play, the drama, and the fifth act ends at a happy note over here. So we can say that we have come up to the conclusion, and we have seen that all the points that we were discussed at the beginning of the lecture, so various themes, sub-themes, various sub-points in the play, that the play starts with the signing of the bond between Antonio and Shylock. Shylock gives 3,000 ducats to Antonio, and Antonio borrows that money for the sake of Bassanio, and bond has been signed. That, what we can say, that was the beginning of the play. Then we came to know about the casket story, how Portia's father have arranged 3 caskets into his house in order to, what we can say, and according to those caskets, he thinks that the person who will choose the right casket, that will be the proper man who can marry with my beautiful and fair and rich daughter Portia. So the casket story was there. Then we have seen elopement of Jessica, who is a daughter of Shylock, who is also very beautiful, who is Jew by birth. She elopes with a Christian man, and not only she elopes with a Christian, but at the same time she robs her father with all the possessions, with all the money, with all the, what we can say, golden ornaments contained into his house. Then we have seen the trial scene. That was the most beautiful scene written in English literature. And into that trial scene, we have seen that how Portia has cleverly saved the life of Antonio from the clutches of Shylock. And finally, in the 5th act, we have witnessed the ring episode, which starts at the end of 4th act and ends into the 5th act, where we find how those girls, in the gaze of lawyer and lawyer's assistants, take their husband's ring as a gift and demands in the 5th act those rings back. And that ring episode is concluded into the 5th act. And with the ring episode, the secret of Portia, or secret of presence of Portia into the court of Venice, is also disclosed. And Portia, as an heavenly angel, spreads joy on the face of everyone present over there. And we can say that with this particular points, thus the drama, which is presented by dramatist with the help of following sub-themes like signing of the bond, casket story, elopement of Jessica, trial scene, and ring episode, comes to a happy end, spreading joy on everyone's face. And with this, I can say that we have come to the end of my presentation. I hope you might have enjoyed my lecture, you might have understood it, and thank you for listening me. Thank you, all of you. Thank you once again.